Hello, my name is Joanne Laspina from My College Helper, and we're going to talk about college admissions essays. I think this is probably one of the things that gives students and, dare I say, parents the most angst in the college admissions process. Filling out the application is fairly straightforward, and sending letters of recommendation and the other pieces of the application file are fairly simple to do. It's the admissions essays and the supplemental questions and the personal statements that really seem to cause so much stress for students. And what I'm hoping to do is alleviate some of that stress and explain what it is that colleges are looking for in these admissions essays, and kind of help students understand better what it is they need to do, because once they understand, I think they're going to find that it actually can be fun. So what I'd like to do is share a couple of slides. So let me share my screen here, and we can go through these and learn a little bit about admissions essays. So let me share screen, and let me back up one to here. All right. Okay. So the first step in writing anything really is figuring out who your audience is. So that's fairly easy when we're talking about college admissions essays. The audience is the admissions staff. Most colleges have an admissions representative assigned to every region of the country. So there is typically one person assigned to a specific region and high school, with the idea that they know that high school best. So that's who you're writing to. Now, many colleges are starting to use committee-based application reads. And so in that case, this might, the admissions essay might be read by multiple people, or maybe read out loud to a committee. So you don't necessarily know exactly who it is, but you can probably count on it being your area admissions rep at minimum. Sometimes it goes to a second person for another read, and sometimes it's read aloud to a committee, or perhaps it might be more of a team approach where two people might be reading and discussing an application. But overall, it's going directly to the admissions office of the college. So I have a couple of notes down here about what they're looking for. I know that you can see the picture there of the stack of files, and oftentimes this is done online now, but admissions people go into what's called reading season, and they tend to do this now multiple times a year. Sometimes there's an early admissions season for folks who are applying early decision and early action, and then there's usually, we think of it in the winter time as sort of that regular decision reading season. And they are indeed reading stacks and stacks of applications and essays, as kind of shown here. So they are really kind of looking to be entertained a little bit. A lot of admissions people, when I've talked to them about essays, they'll say, it's the first thing I read. I ignore the rest of the file. I pull up the essay because I just want to get to know the person, apart from the rest of the application file. I know that I spoke with one admissions person, and he said, I love when I read an essay and all I think is, I can't wait till my wife gets home because I got to read this one to her. So that's what they're looking for. They're really looking to get to know a person, to find out something memorable. They're looking for an insightful essay. They're looking for something new because they're reading an awful lot of essays. But that's your audience, and that's your goal. So just a quick review of what a typical college application file looks like. Your transcript and your school profile get sent by your guidance office in your high school. School profile, you can usually look yours up online. It's high school specific. Every high school has one. It basically says, here's information about our school, how many students we have, what kind of a grading system we use, how many honors classes we offer, how many AP classes we offer, etc. Just gives the application reader a general overview of the high school. And then they're using that school profile and comparing your transcript, your grades, and the courses that you've taken. This is the most important part of your application file, your grades and courses, your transcript. Test scores students need to send in. That doesn't get sent in through high school guidance offices. So students send their test scores. The actual application, which we've got a couple paper ones left out there, but typically you're filling out your application online. Letters of recommendation, which get sent by the high school. And then, of course, essays and supplements. Supplements include things like some schools will say if you have a resume, you can upload it, or if you have, if you're in the arts, perhaps you might have a portfolio of drawings or other visual arts, or a video if you're involved in the performing arts. So colleges will ask for, they'll either require or may accept different supplementals, and they'll discuss that as part of the application. The essay, which we're talking about today, may be one essay or it could be multiple essays. And if you're applying for special programs like nursing or an honors college, you may have additional essays. I do find that students underestimate the number of essays they need to write, which is why it's so important to get started now. We already know the essays that are required by the main application platforms like Common Application. We know those essays, so students can be working on them the summer before senior year. We start to find out supplemental essays usually in August, sometimes as late as early September, but as colleges begin to roll out their applications, we get those supplemental essay questions. The reason I think essays cause such angst for students is because they're so used to writing for school assignments. So those more formal, the 5-paragraph with your intro and then your 3 supporting paragraphs, and then you tie it all together in your conclusion paragraph. That's how students have been trained to write essays. Your college admissions essay is very different. So this is written in first person. You're using I, me. It's less formal. It really should be, it should sound like the way you speak. So think of this as almost an interview, except you're putting it all down on paper. Picture the person sitting across from you. How would you talk to them? How would you share something with them? That's how your essay should sound. And this is what they're looking for. So what are your essay reader, the admissions staff, what are they trying to get to know? Well, first of all, they just want to know who you are. So that's what you're expected to share with them. They just want to get a sense of your personality, your values, your experiences, your background. They're also trying to figure out what you're going to contribute to their campus. So how are you going to fit in with their campus community? Because they're looking for people who are going to fit in. But also, how are you going to stand out? They're also looking for people who will be doing things on their campus. And your application and your essay need to show those things to the admissions reader. And then, of course, they are just trying to figure out if you can put words into sentences and sentences into paragraphs and be able to write in a way that makes sense and shares information. All right, so not hard, right? Easy so far. So what we find out, though, I've read many, many, many college admissions essays, and the top mistakes that we seem to see from students, they don't answer the question. Some questions are very broad and designed for a student to be able to kind of write about pretty much anything they want to. Maybe the final prompt for the Common Application essay is topic of your choice. So you can write about whatever you want, but some questions are very specific. And so, if a college is saying, why do you want to attend our college? It needs to be very specific about their college. That's how you answer the question. I also have a lot of students approach this by saying, well, I need to figure out what they want from me. What would be better? What does a college want to hear from me? Because they're trying to impress the reader, and that's the wrong way to go about this. Truly, they want to get to know you. Other top mistakes just include talking too much about other people or other experiences. Frequently, I'll finish a college admissions essay when I'm reviewing it, and I'll think, oh, I just found out an awful lot about this person's grandfather, but I didn't find out very much about the writer because they focused on something else. the applicant, the student, needs to be center stage. And then, of course, grammar and spelling errors, which you just need to be careful about at the end. Don't worry about this as you're writing your first couple of drafts. And notice I said couple of drafts. This is not something you're sitting down and writing quickly. This definitely is a process. And I also have students who are really concerned that they just don't have anything to write about. Their life is boring. And again, we're going to brainstorm, do some brainstorming exercises here. This doesn't have to be about some grand experience that you've had. Remember, it's just about you, and you're not boring. So where to start? Students start this backwards. They start this by trying to think about things they've done or things they've experienced and how that may or may not make a good essay. So I'll have students say, well, I went on a missions trip and we helped build houses. Or I'll have a student say, oh, we took this great vacation to Rome and it was life-changing. You're doing this backwards. First, you have to start thinking about, what do I want the admissions person to know about me? Brainstorm that. Write those things down. I'm going to show you a few exercises in just a second here. Start with, what do I think they want to know about me? And then you're forming your topic around that. Write about something personal, write about something meaningful, something that's insightful. And then we'll start the brainstorming in a minute. Just start writing. This is where students really psych themselves out, I find. You know, we talk about these essays, talk about who's reading it, what they're looking for, and then I think the pressure this suddenly starts to feel so important and so, huge that it's hard to just start writing. So start writing. And sometimes you're just going to start in the middle. I know when I'm writing, oftentimes the very first couple of sentences are the last things that I write. I just need to jump in the middle and start writing. So make a draft and then set it aside for a couple of days. And then pick the draft up again. It's probably going to be lousy, and that's what a first draft is supposed to be, and start fixing it. So you're reviewing your draft and you're revising it, and you're doing this a couple of times. I know when I'm reviewing essays with students, we're back and forth 4, 5, 6 times. That's why this process takes a while. And I can always tell when I have a student who is frantic about a deadline and trying to get an essay done because the essay's just poorly written. It's a first draft, usually. You want to give yourselves time to write these essays. If you decide to get some feedback, maybe you want to have your parent read it or your high school English teacher read it. What you want to find out from them is, does this sound like me? Does this sound like the way I would talk? Does this convey the kind of person that I am, who I am? Take their best suggestions. And then by your final draft, your proofreading, that's when you're really looking for grammar and spelling. I always recommend that students read it out loud because that's typically when you start to catch some of the words that you might be repeating or the flow might not be right. So read it out loud, knowing that there's a good chance it's going to be read out loud by the college anyway. So I've got 2 exercises that I want to share that I commonly do with students. When I meet with a student, either in person or by a video chat, I ask them to bring 3 items. Now this exercise suggests 10 items, but I ask them to bring 3 items with them that they believe shows something about them. So I'll often have students come, with a picture of their dog, or if they play tennis or baseball, they'll bring the tennis ball or baseball. This is really just a way for us to start brainstorming and for me to kind of get to know them a little bit. I mean, we're digging deeper than that tennis ball. Okay, you brought the tennis ball. What does tennis mean to you? What do the other people on the tennis team, how are they part of your life? And we start to delve deeper into these objects, but it's kind of a good start for us to begin to really see what are the important parts of a student's life so that we can dig down a little bit deeper. The other exercise I always do is a personality trait worksheet. And this is something that we can provide as a separate handout so that you can kind of look these over. And what I ask students to do is circle. I start off with 10. Circle the 10 personality traits that you would most want a college to know about you. And then we kind of filter that down a little bit. I like to get to about 3 or 4, which are the 3 or 4 traits that absolutely have to be in your essays and personal statements. That has to kind of shine through. And that's not necessarily the words that are listed here, but through the story that you're sharing, I would be able to gather that. So that's the idea. So I might be reading a story about a student who likes to recycle things that they find at yard sales, let's say. So they might be sharing a story about some items that they've kind of rescued and refreshed. And through that, I might then deduce after reading the essay, oh, this person is really resourceful. They're kind of a do-it-yourself kind of person. They're very creative. So the student doesn't necessarily have to say those words in the essay. I just need to be able to pull that from the story. A couple of do's and don'ts here. Make sure that you're setting yourself apart from other people. And I find that that can really happen in the details. So compare these 2 sentences. We went for a ride in my friend's car. Compared to, we were riding in Ryan's red Jeep Cherokee. So you're saying the same thing, but I can get a vision in my head of the student sitting in Ryan's red Jeep Cherokee. I've just learned a whole lot more about the student, and that helps you be able to distinguish one essay from another. Don't repeat all of the stuff that's already in your file. I read a lot of essays of students kind of recounting all of their the activities they're involved with. You're going to be providing an activity list in your application file. So then you don't need to tell me that you're in Boy Scouts and you're on the soccer team and kind of listing all of that. That's already in there. I already know those things. So don't share the things that are already in your application file. Be really careful about recycling essays. I know there's a book I've seen floating around out there about how you can write one essay and use it for all of your colleges. Be very careful about that. Each essay should sound custom written. Now, that's not the case for the main common application essay because that will go to multiple schools. But when you're writing your supplemental essays for individual colleges, each of those needs to sound custom written. And I every single year, even though I caution students, I'll have a frantic student who sent an essay to a college that mentioned a different college. So you're making sure that you're proofreading. So you'll be able to use aspects and pieces of other essays, but you certainly don't want to have kind of this big error in your essay. And you'll catch that in your proofreading, of course. Be sure that you're not writing the same essay that 1,000 other seniors are going to write. And that happens when people stay on kind of the surface of writing and when they don't delve deep, when they don't provide those details, when they're not providing those personal insights. And I read lots of what I call kind of generic essays about some sports event and winning this big important game. And then I think, well, the whole rest of the team could have written that same essay because I didn't learn enough about that individual person. So I know you're hearing the same things over and over from me. This needs to be insightful. It needs to be personal. It needs to be detailed. That's what's going to really make your essay stand out. So a couple of final checks here. Are you the only person who could have written that? If you're writing about something that you did with other people and any of the other people who were involved in this could have written pretty much the same essay, you didn't dig deep enough. does it flow? Is it sharing a story? Is it conveying the things that you want it to convey? Probably the two biggest pieces of feedback that I give when I initially read an essay have to do with the opening and the ending. Remember, these admissions readers are reading a lot of essays. So is it something where you are hooking them at the beginning so that they stay interested and want to continue reading? I often find that students do what I call bury the hook. So I'll start reading an essay, and by about sentence 2 of paragraph 2, we're in the action. Like now things are starting to happen, and I'll say, let's pull that up, bring that up to the beginning so that you're hooking your reader right away, and then you can go into some of the backstory. And then is the ending strong? Again, I might be typing back some feedback to students saying, I can tell you got tired at the end. You want to keep it strong the whole way through. And just a couple of final thoughts here. The readers know that you are high school students. You're 17 and 18 years old. That's what they're expecting. They're expecting to hear from a 17 and 18-year-old. Every now and then I run across an essay where I'm pretty sure a 17 or 18-year-old didn't write it. I can hear a parent in there. So remember, they're not looking for a 48-year-old person who wrote the essay. So parents need to be really careful about not weaving them, kind of inserting themselves into an essay if the students ask for their feedback, or if a parent feels that a student's not doing a good enough job. Keep in mind, they're looking for 17 and 18-year-old college students, and that's who they are expecting will be writing these essays. It's fine to have other people read your essay, and you can certainly take their suggestions if they make sense to you, but it's your essay, and it should have one voice, and it should be your voice. And just trust this process. If you are open and honest and really sharing what you want the college to know about you, it all just works together. So don't put so much pressure on yourself. I mean, typically your admissions essay, that's not going to be a make or break usually. You've got to have the grades, you got to have the test scores, you got to have the other things that a college is looking for, but your essay can help, and it can certainly add personality and interest to your application file, and that's really what you're looking to do. So I'm looking forward to more conversations about admissions essays, but I just wanted to give an overview at this point, and we'll be talking more about this. And I would just say to students, relax, just have fun with it. Share something about yourself, something that you really want a college to know about you, and that's what they're looking for, and it's going to be okay. Thank you.